the things that I find really, really interesting on the show, and it's one of my favorite aspects, is the relationship between, Stan and Evie, and you don't see a lot of really strong male and female friendships on shows like this
I agree.
between characters this age. Can you talk a little bit about that and going into season 3 with their...
Well, Dana, who created the show, and myself as the producer, one of our favorite tones is screwball, and screwball is defined as the protagonist being female, whether it's Rosalind Russell or Kate Hepburn, and because early on it became clear that Janet can play those notes, and it's really hard. That's why you don't see that much successful screwball. But Janet's so agile, and she's so nimble with tone that we started to move it in that direction. So while the show is called Stan Against Evil, Janet is the initiator. Stan's very reactionary, and Dana also was funny. He said to me early on, "Is that Janet's the son I never had," and I didn't know what he meant at first, because I do think Stan obviously loves Deborah's character and cherishes his daughter, but he's right. Janet is the son he never had, and so there's no sexual tension between them, but there's genuine respect and fondness, which is hard because everybody wants to fuck each other, and that's not the drill. And they both need each other to get from A to B. They can't do it alone. Stan damn sure can't. Maybe she could, but and so that when we rely on each other like that and take away the sexual component, then there's some honesty in there, and so you see it. Not all the time, since it's a horror comedy, but in between the lines you can see it. And you can also see how much I adore Janet Varney, and it's reciprocal. And the camera sees all... I've always tell actors the camera's an X-ray machine. So if you think you're going to pull one on... And actors lie for a living, so good actors can reduce the scope of the lie. And then the X-ray machine doesn't suffer you as quite a fool. And so for Platoon, when they sent us to boot camp for 3 weeks, none of us were soldiers, but that reduced the scope of the lie. At the end of the 3 weeks, if we took lie detector tests, it would have come out that 70% of that platoon felt like they were grunts. And the camera, then that's the way the camera suffers it. And so your question is right on, that friendship between those two characters, the camera identifies it. And it's real. And to have that in a horror comedy is another layer that I think people relate to from the stuff I see online. And it's what separates it. Look, Stan Against Evil occupies this real estate horror comedy between the two extremes on the spectrum are Scooby-Doo, which is funny, but it's not scary, and The Exorcist, which is really scary, but it's not funny. And so to somewhere meet in the middle there, that tone, it's hard. Because you can't defang the monsters, but you don't want to make the jokes too stupid. And so that's what we try to do. That's the tone of the piece.
That's a perfect summation of it, too. And I was wondering, to reset for a second, when the show first came out, and I heard you were in it, on it, just previous roles, your career, obviously. And I wasn't sure kind of about the stuff. You're in the premise and seeing the trailers. When you saw it, and it totally works, by the way, but when you first saw the script and you're having this conversation with Dana, what sold you on the project?
What sold me was something that I wanted Dana to mine, and it was Stan's loss. And the loss is that we find out in the first 4 minutes of the first episode that his wife's been killed. Or dead, he doesn't know killed or dead, and he's lost his job of 27 years, and his life is largely done, and he just says, I want to sit in my chair and do nothing, and I can't even do that. And so I said to Dana, I think you're missing an opportunity here. What's interesting about this guy is loss, and we're all familiar with loss. I don't care if somebody took the ball away from you in the playground. It's part of the human condition. And I said, I understand the tone of the piece, and I did clearly right up front. I said, but you got to explore Stan's loss. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. And he didn't realize that he had already put that all on the page. Great writers don't realize it. And I said, you're the one who put this on. I didn't have anything to do with it. But you're missing Stan's loss. That's all that matters to me, is him reconciling his loss. All this other shit that you layer on top will be funny if it's a guy trying to reconcile loss. He hadn't left this town in 27 years. He's been married to the same woman. There's been no hanky-panky. He's probably never taken his gun out of his belt. This has been a good job for 27 years. It's defined him. Now he has no definition and has no grounding. That's your hero? I want to watch that guy, but we got to dig into him. And so that's what attracted me to it. And so it was a leap of faith that the executive producer would dig into that. And he did. And now it's yielded dividends. It helps a lot. Otherwise, it's just... Yes. Oh, I don't know about that, but I'm pretty stubborn.
So, this is a pretty special effects heavy show, and I've seen some teases of...
Well, it's practical effects.
Yes.
We don't have the money for special effects.
Sorry, practical effects. A little smattering of special effects. But the practical effects, I've seen some hints of what's to come in season 3.
Have you?
Yes. I'm friends with Nick.
Oh, okay. He's the best.
Yes. I'm keeping it all under wraps, but I'm friends with him.
He's a god.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit? Did you have to do anything? Obviously, you don't get thrown around any usually, but did you have to get splattered at all? Really?
Well, Mick snapped my neck last year in the finale.
Yeah.
But
he got the ripped heads off, snap neck.
did anything happen to Stan? I can't remember, and I'm not being a wise guy because we're editing 301, 303. We just did 303. We'll start 304 on Monday. I swear to you, I feel like a horse with blinders on right now, that it's just about 304. 303 is done. We'll tweak it a little bit. It's insane. It's like a fever dream. And 304 will go back to kind of a mythology episode. But what's great about the mix of the world is, well, he's top of the food chain, but these actors come in, they go into makeup at like 3 a.m. They get all these prosthetics put on them for 4 or 5 hours. Now the ensemble comes in, and Mick is like a Zen master. He sits in his chair. It's 90 degrees with 90-degree humidity. He has all these appliances on, and somebody calls action, and he crushes it. And so the difference being, the actors don't have to have a tennis ball on a C-stand and make pretend it's a scary monster coming at him. It's Mick in full regalia and is scary as shit. And the camera, again, the actors aren't lying. They're scared. Mick is doing this shit, and it's scary. And the camera fucking suffers it as not a lie. And so that's the advantage. It's a pain in the ass doing all this practical stuff. I'm sure it would be much easier on the computer. We don't have near enough money for computer stuff. But also the fans love the practical stuff.
Your eye can tell the difference.
Well, Dana says the same thing. That everyone's seen now from The Life of Pi, where that DP won for rendering an ocean. Nothing in The Life of Pi was real. Nothing. When the kid's on the raft, when he's on the thing. So you can render whatever you want. You can render an ocean perfectly now. Not really. You know it's not an ocean. You know that's not a tiger. And so when you get these guys and women who are on the upper part of the food chain of doing practical stuff, it makes a difference. Like, we had some puppets this year. We haven't cut this episode yet. We have puppets this year who are bad guys. And that was hard, but you have these puppeteers who come in. They're miraculous. Obviously everything has to be 15 frame shots, and there have to be a lot of setups. You can't just watch a puppet do his or her shit. You have to cut around them a lot, and it's a lot more setups than we usually have. But it was great. A la Chucky. I think Dana's always making an homage to somebody. We had the X-Files. We had an homage to the X-Files, to Kolchak, and there's some demon puppets this year who are insane. And we blow their heads off. That's what you do to demon puppets. Right?
Yeah.
What else would you do with demon puppets?
We do one more question. So, like you said, you're still at the start of filming. You know, 1, 2, you're on to 3 and 4 right now.
No, we're chopping. We're film. We've done filming.
Everything.
We're just
Okay,
editing.
You're editing. Okay. I know you can't say a lot. Thematically, or just maybe top level, what was your favorite part of the season? Maybe just overall theme.
I thought Dana finding his way out of the end of the world, the apocalypse that he wrote at the end of season 2, and then giving Stan this uber arc of that if you hit the theme he gave Stan this year, and it is for all eight episodes, is that if you want to defeat evil, you have to find a bigger evil. So you have to find evil's boss and let a little in. And that's just diabolical.
Yeah.
And he traces it back to the United States getting in bed with Stalin during World War II. Stalin kills 40 million of his own people, but the United States doesn't beat Hitler without Stalin.
It's like an enemy of my enemy type of
Yes,
situation.
but it has to be the biggest enemy.
Okay.
It's great.